Doesn't matter, I mean, Cape Cod, is going to sink or swim as an entity, as a region. So, and everybody understands that. And so people are much more inclined to reach out and work together in a much more collective way than they had before. And, if you had said that 5 years ago, people would have went, nah, you're crazy. You say it now and people go, yep.
Fortunately, our legislature and our governor just passed probably the most forward-thinking or looking set of goals and targets and mandates for climate change on the state level. And I think Cape Codders are right in line with that through the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative and everything we do here. Cape Codders really are environmentally tuned in group of people for the most part. We love this place, we love this ocean, and I think as long as they know what the game plan is, they're willing to try to make it happen.
A lot of what has led us to this point is this idea that we're entitled to overconsumption, a materialism going sort of rampant, and that we're entitled to all this. And what we do know is the degree of materialism is not sustainable, and it comes at a price, and we're paying the price now.
Partly I feel a sense of responsibility, and partly I'm just an old-time environmentalist who, looks at a salt marsh that's, as we say, drowning in place because it can't migrate because we built a road behind it, and it just drowns and dies, and feeling like that's just a tragedy that shouldn't be happening.
So the corporate responsibility is not that different from individual responsibility. So we all create a waste stream. We all utilize resources in order to move through our lives. And business is particularly responsible because it makes a bigger swath.
So one of the factors that makes me pretty optimistic is the economy now. The business decisions are driving toward climate change. When you have the business leaders getting ready to invest their money in renewable energy as opposed to more drilling for oil and gas in the Arctic Ocean, that's a fundamental change that will really produce a good scenario.
It feels really like all of these things have come together. The changes in Washington, the new law that we now have in Massachusetts are all hitting at the same time as the recognition of the urgency of the problem is also hitting. There's no doubt that cutting our emissions 50% in 9 years is going to require nothing short of a rebuilding of our economy and everything that it touches, and that is every part of our lives are going to be changed.
Our banking and finance sector has to make money available so that it's easy for people to put solar panels on their houses. Our food and agricultural and restaurant industries have to purchase their supplies locally so they're not flying tomatoes in from some foreign country thousands of miles away, putting more carbon dioxide in the air. Our faith community has already and needs to begin to talk about this as a moral issue, because it really is, in many people's mind, and mine too, it's a moral issue. We owe it to this earth and to future generations to live sustainably on this planet and not just consume everything we can and hand off what remains to the next generation.
The next generations, that's the other prime motivator. I mean, my brother started an airline, he's got 3 girls, they're approaching 30 years of age, and you just don't want to do the handoff without having spent some serious committed time towards handing off a better world.
I've told you how important it is for us to take action, and we're worried that not enough people will start to take action right away. But I'm the optimist. I see the glass as half full, and I see lots of lots of decisions and actions beginning to happen across a wide spectrum. A lot of our industry is already beginning to think about buying electric trucks and vehicles. Some of our new buildings, I'll use the Cape Cod 5-cent savings banks. Headquarters is a green building. That's a great example. Our local airline, Cape Air, has decided to buy electric airplanes. That's another great example. And individuals, too, need to just change their footprint.
The mission of the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative is to reach carbon neutrality, or net zero, on Cape Cod and the islands of Massachusetts by enhancing communication, collaboration, and activism among organizations, programs, and individuals committed to mitigating the climate crisis.
When I returned from participating in Ocean Days at the Paris Climate Accord in December of 2015, there was a lot of interest. There actually was a lot of excitement because it's not every day when 196 presidents come together and agree on something. So that caused a lot of good energy and focus. And when I came back to the Cape, people asked me, what could Cape Codders do?
We helped realize his idea to establish this organization, and we worked to secure founding partners of the organization, which were leading environmental and other institutions across the Cape. He gave a slide presentation, I call it his dog and pony show, about climate change. And I was blown away by what I learned.
He said, we can be a leadership region in meeting these goals, and regardless of whether they're adopted by government, you know, we as a region are threatened more than other regions.
Yeah, it's really been a great learning experience for me to be part of the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative as a representative of the Faith Communities Environmental Network, because I've learned so much from my colleagues on that around the climate emergency, and everyone is coming at it from their own perspectives and worlds and silos, so to speak. So the cross-pollination of ideas is so powerful.
So the organization started with an understanding that it would, on a yearly basis, it would be primarily focused on its event, which is its conference. Bring together people who can address climate change, the local aspect of climate change and its mitigation in the context of the whole world.
We invited a couple hundred people to conferences and broke into workshops and sat them down by industry. So people who are all in transportation were together, people in education were together, people in the energy field were together, and said, we'd like you all to brainstorm specific actions that are feasible.
We have sponsored the development of local climate action networks, some of which existed, but they're developing in each town. And at the local level, that's a wonderful opportunity for people to connect with other people and find out how they can work together to advance the mission.
First, the towns have to say there is emergency. Then the towns have to start doing things like, when we buy police cars, if there's an electric one available, we're going to buy it.
There's one way to think about how to take action, and that is, we all, the way we live our lives, create an impact by using fossil fuel. And the amount of carbon dioxide we put into the air because of our individual actions can be looked at as our carbon footprint. So if you go on the website of the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative and go to our little device that says how to reduce your own individual carbon footprint, you will see a list of several hundred actions that people can take simple actions, some no cost, some costly. And if you click off those and do any of them, the calculation will happen right on your computer as to how many pounds less of carbon dioxide you would be producing if you take that change.
I think the Climate Collaborative's plans for 2021, based on what's happening at the federal level and what's happened at the state level with the recent passage of the climate legislation, is how do we apply the resources, the energy, and the directives of the new legislation at the local level? What does it mean for us in Brewster, or Chatham, or Bourne, or Yarmouth, or Provincetown? Well, there's so many opportunities for people to get involved at the local level, from their own homes, with other groups, with our organization. And you know, we are open to everyone. The organization is. We do have volunteer opportunities. There, you know, everything is virtual at this point. We're still in the middle of COVID, and come up with a potential roadmap for how we as a region can work together, again, cross-network and cross-sector, to achieve carbon neutrality.
Well, in 2018, we set out our 4 climate goals, which essentially boil down to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, reaching net zero by 2050, educating the community about this effort and what they can do, and taking steps to preserve natural resources, which play a very important role in carbon sequestration and carbon storage.
Cape Air, for example, has had a sustainability program for, I think, 10 years. They have provided education to their employees. They have offered incentives for their employees to purchase electric vehicles.
The fact is that electric engines are much more efficient in using energy than gas engines. They need much less maintenance. We can't wait. I mean, we're looking at the mid-2020s. We're seeing maybe a plane fly this year. And we do see Cape Cod as being our New England roots, being the test of concept or the proof of concept. We needed to, you know, pay attention. It wasn't something that was kind of a flighty idea. It was really real that this was going to change our niche of aviation.
I think eventually we can come to some kind of equilibrium if we make the total transition from fossil fuel to renewable fuel. Now the good news is we have now produced renewable energy from solar and from wind that is the same cost per kilowatt hour, in some cases less, than the fuel produced by oil and gas and natural gas.
My biggest fear about climate change is a response in the face of it of apathy and a lack of urgency. Sort of Martin Luther King spoke about do-nothingism, and you know, that we just sort of get frozen, or we ignore it and deny it, and that's part of, I think, the prophetic voice of faith communities and churches, to speak out and speak the truth of what's happening in a way that may not be palatable for everyone, but is the truth.
I'm optimistic enough to believe that all problems have solutions if we have the will and the capacity to find those solutions, and they're there. So this is a problem that can be solved, that we no longer have a choice about. You know, we have to do this.
Do I think we are going to be successful? I think we have no choice but to do what we can as individuals and as a collectivity of individuals and groups to work to address this problem.
And I went home to my mom and I said, what is this about heaven? I never heard anything about heaven at home. She said, well, what we believe in is that you create ripples and your immortality is based upon the stories people tell about you. And you're only actually dead if they stop telling stories altogether. And to me, that's why I said you're going to make me cry. Because I've reached a point in my life where I know, for me, that is true. We're going to leave ripples. And let's hope those ripples aren't, you know, in my mind, the waters rushing in and covering up Cape Cod.